And butt numb from sitting cross-legged on the rug while the two of them played their favorite survival horror game. Ben hobbled to his bedroom window to look. "Where am I looking?" Lil didn't answer for a moment. "Never mind," she said finally. "It's nothing." Ben grabbed the small pair of folding binoculars off his desk. "You sounded pretty tweaked out for nothing." He peered through the eyepieces, knowing he'd be able to see whatever Lil had, despite the distance. From his bedroom window, way up on the hill old folks still called the Duckbill, he could see almost the entire town with the binoculars he'd gotten a few Christmases back. He and Lil had tested them, with Ben warm inside his house and Lil braving the cold, standing in the middle of the street out front of her apartment, waving madly and shivering. When he pulled the focus now, he wasn't prepared for what he would see, and he wasn't sure he could believe his eyes. He blinked hard and peered through them again, only to be visited by the same impossible sight. A house hovered down Main Street like an apparition, like something out of a nightmare. The skin on his neck and cheeks prickled electric with disbelief and, despite his self-professed desensitivity to all things horror, even fear. He lowered the binoculars a moment, his palms slick with sweat. The hair on his arms stood on end. In the novels he enjoyed, the writers often called this phenomenon horripulation. He'd always liked the ring of the word, but had never experienced it quite as he was now. When he zoomed out, he was relieved to discover the house wasn't floating down the street on its own. Dozens of large wheels rolled beneath it, but the cab or tractor or whatever carried the house was hidden from view behind its covered porch. He remembered workers had been doing something with the power and telephone lines downtown on his way home from dinner at Grandma Lorami's house the other night, and now he knew the reason. They'd been making space to move the house through town. "That can't be real," he muttered into the headset, pulled taut from the console. He'd spoken it aloud, but not to Lil, only to convince himself. "It's real," she said. "There was furniture inside and—" The sun had brightened her living room again, warming her goose-bumped arms. Now that it was gone, she felt a surge of bravery. She drew up the blinds, pulled the bent screen off its frame, and stuck her head out the window. Several kids she recognized chased the house on their bikes, cheering and whistling and popping wheelies. Adults and children had stopped on both sides as if to watch a parade, shading their eyes to get a better look. "And what?" Ben asked. "It was nothing," she said, more to assuage her own fears than to answer Ben. She shook her head in amusement, chuckling at her initial fear. It was just a big old ugly house, nothing all that scary about it. If it hadn't rolled by her living room windows, if she'd seen it at the end of a cul-de-sac or at the top of the duckbill, she could imagine an old lady in a sun hat picking weeds from flower beds out front, or a middle-aged guy with his gut hanging over his jeans drinking a beer and pushing a mower across its lawn. Ben tailed the house with the binoculars. It looked straight out of the old horror movies he loved, 3 stories high with gabled rooftops like jagged teeth, veins of dark green ivy crawling over crumbled bricks the color of dried blood, shutters on the windows. He thought it even looked kind of familiar, but in his excitement he couldn't quite place it. Maybe it had been used in a horror movie. A haunted house, he thought. A real haunted house rolling up Main Street. Wow! "It's gone," Lil said half the town away, relief in her voice. With the house out of sight behind the post office, the people in the street resumed their business, returning to stores and carrying on about their day as if nothing out of the ordinary had just happened, though Lil suspected none of them had seen anything so interesting in their lives, especially not right here in the boring old town of Duck Falls, Maryland. Nothing to be afraid of, she thought. Just a house. A big, ugly old house. She thought of the shadow she'd seen in the hall, but she quickly pushed the image away. What good would playing that game do, besides creeping herself out for no reason? "Well, why don't you go outside?" Ben suggested. To look at the house, he meant. "Headset," she said. "Duh." But it was really just an excuse. She didn't want to be anywhere near that house, haunted or not, and she hoped wherever it was going was very far away from here.